If you don't have an action plan for your goals, you can just continue to dream forever and you'll never achieve them. Everything that I have achieved, I have set a goal and it is coupled with an actual action plan on how to achieve them. I look back at when I first started my company, and I started with a big grand vision goal. And then I had to basically back into the bigger plans and subsequent steps on how to achieve it. In the past, when I've achieved bigger goals and things, it can take a long time and it takes a lot of perseverance, but I've actually mapped out the steps to take and then broken them down into smaller, approachable parts. I've seen so many people flounder and fail when they don't have the tactical aspect of achieving their goals. It's really easy to be on Thursday and make a list of resolutions or have a vision board or write out all these things you're going to achieve, and then easily slip back into old habits and not change any of your actions to actually achieve them. And that's what I've found is how you actually get things done. You have to map out the actions to take and be a lot more tactical than just dreaming about something. The dream and vision is absolutely essential and it's where you start. But if you don't follow up on it, you're going to have a bunch of vision boards that you never achieve, and will be sort of probably depressing to look at some point later. I had a really good colleague that had reached out to me about when she wanted to start a real estate company. And she was super brilliant, super smart, started with this idea of doing multifamily value add, which is a strategy that's pretty commonplace. And I told her about my story, laid out steps I took, and she was super excited about it. And then the last time I talked to her, she was doing something in Bitcoin. This is like a year from then. She's doing something in Bitcoin and kind of had given up on that whole goal. And I had asked her why, and she just basically ended up stopping at the first sign of it being a tough market or something like that. And it's just, unfortunately, if you want to achieve things, you have to put in the work to get them done. I'm Meg Epstein, and I have achieved many of my life goals before I'm 40 by setting a big vision and then implementing a plan and steps to achieve them. This started with marrying my husband and choosing the right partner, planning out our bucket list of what we wanted to get done in our marriage. And then when we wanted to have kids, we now have 3 kids with 1 on the way. That was all part of our plan. I've built a big real estate company based in Nashville by starting with 1 project, 2, 3, up to 12 projects over 400 million by implementing my plans. I've achieved a lot in my philanthropic goals. We've donated over $1 million to charity and put in hundreds of hours of volunteer time. And that was all part of my plan. And I can say that without the plan, I wouldn't have gotten as far as I have and achieved my goals. So once I got established in real estate in Nashville and I did 1 project, I had the goal to get to 100 million in condo projects because that was how I had first become successful. So I wanted to exponentially factor that. So 100 million was my first next tactical goal. I basically spent a lot of my time building a pipeline of projects, and to find more projects in Nashville, I basically just drive around like old school and look at where do I think I would want to live if I had a condo in Nashville. And I would write down the addresses, and then I would call on people. I would call on the sellers, or if it was a business, I would just walk in and say, "Hey, I'm Meg. Are you looking at selling your land?" and have conversations with people. And basically, the first step was building this pipeline. And so I had to do the work to build the pipeline. After I had the pipeline, I had to do out the math and say, okay, I need to get at least 2 more projects done within the next 6 months, or at least rolling. And so that was my goal. And I think I made it within right down to the 6-month mark. I got people willing to sell me their land. And what you find is if you really map this out and you write down what your plan is and give yourself actual due dates by when you need to achieve these things, magically, if you're doing it, it happens. Somehow. You have to do the work, of course, but usually I come down right within a week of when I said I needed to do something by. It's just sort of human nature that you end up taking as much time as you've allocated for yourself to get something done. I built out my pipeline was the first step, and then it was about getting it funded. So then I turned my attention to building my investor list and basically mapping out, okay, where am I going to get real estate investors? And so I mapped out goals of saying, okay, I'm going to reach out to at least 100 people a week for 3 months, I believe I said. And so I built a CRM. I made lists of people to call. I kept statistics on how many people I reached out to on LinkedIn and email and the relationships I built. And then I made sure to execute on that. And so that was how I started raising the first pool of capital that I used for my condo projects. And then after that, it was a matter of building them. And so these steps I generally knew from the first project that I had gotten through. So I just mapped them out and I continued to execute them one after the other. After it was funded, it was a matter of getting it built, worked with my architect on the design. And then at the end of the first project, the Business Journal happened to call me the condo queen of Nashville. And I thought that was funny because I sort of decided early on, years before, that I wanted to really build the best middle market condos in Nashville. And I never saw this product type, and this is what I was going to do. And it took years, but somehow that came to reality. And it just was like, okay, now they're calling me the condo queen of Nashville, which I thought was funny. I didn't, need to be called the condo queen, but the point is that my goal was to be the best at middle market condos in the city. I saw a need for it. And I worked hard and mapped out the steps to get there. And then I got to my first 100 million. And now we've done several hundred million since then. But that was the first example of getting to an exponential next step in my career that was done by goal setting. First, you need to start with a very specific goal. Not, I want to be the condo queen of Nashville. It would be, I want to develop $100 million worth of condo projects in the next 3 years. That's an example of a specific. I want to get married. Okay, I want to marry this type of person by the time I'm this age. More specific. Another example would be, I want to give back to charity. Okay, I want to make this impact on 10 children through the fostering system within this next year. I want to be famous. Not really a great goal because people can be famous for bad things, right? So I want to be the dramatic lead in a Netflix series in the next 2 years would be a better goal, right? Specificity with your big goal. Now you need to break your goal down into specific tactical targets. This might take a little bit of research. I've read a bunch of books on how real estate developers have succeeded or entrepreneurs have succeeded. So you can probably ask ChatGPT at this point, like how people get certain things done. But whatever your goal is, you need to break it down into achievable, broader parts that you can get done in, say, the shorter term, call it 3 months, or however long your goal is going to take. It's probably 5 to 7 smaller steps that can be taken to achieve it. So, very simple one. I want to travel the world internationally, which is really fun because you start with a great vision of, somewhere in Tahiti or doing yoga in Bali. We decide, first of all, where do you want to go? Is someone going to go with you? And then you break down the parts to get there. Okay, so if it's next summer, I basically have 1 year to get to Italy and be eating pasta. So I need to, 1, apply for my passport. 2, budget out how much the hotel is, the flight is, where you're going to stay, create a budget for this trip. 3, what do you need to do to make enough money or save enough money if you don't have it to get there? And those steps, whatever your job is, applies to you. Book the flight, say 6 months out. You basically just target out the steps to plan your trip, and then you get to travel internationally. And that's like the end goal, and you've mapped it out and you've given yourself enough time to achieve it. But each week, it's not like, oh, I'm going to go to Italy and eat pasta. You're just like, oh, I just need to do my paperwork for the passport this week. That's a good example of how a bigger goal can be broken down to be much more approachable. So in this example, 1 week you would just be doing passport paperwork. The next week you would just be, buying your luggage and figuring out how you're going to pack. The following week you would be saving extra money on the weekend to put towards your travel fund. Those are just examples of how each week you're just doing something that's much more approachable so you don't get overwhelmed with your bigger goal. So the goal is, I want to start a construction company. I'm defining that by saying I want to start a metal building company that cash flows $50,000 a month passively for me. Good. What's the first step? You have to first handle all of the legal aspects of setting up a company. So I'm going to apply for my contractor's license. You need to study for a test, pass a test, get reviewed financials, and then go through the application process. That's probably the first thing you're going to do because that's going to take longer. The next thing you need to do is marketing and promotion. So you need to set up a name, a logo, a website, and put it on Google Maps. Those are the next steps you need to focus on, right? And those all take a certain amount of time, several weeks each. And you just target it out by how long and set dates for yourself. Okay, good. Now you have a real legitimate company. Then you need to set up the financial aspect of the company. So do you have an investor? Do you have partners? You need a bank account, you need QuickBooks and an accounting bookkeeper, say when you're first getting started, set it up so that you're able to receive money. Then you need to work on selling the product that you want to deliver. So that's all the outreach and sales going on to actually get clients. Then, of course, you have to perform on that work. So you have your first metal building, deliver it well, and then at the end, you can publish on your website pictures of it and promote that and start the whole process over again. But at least that's from the very beginning to the end. And you could say, by the end of the year, I'm going to be owning a construction company that has passive cash flow. So any goal that you have, you can start with a bigger goal, break it down into smaller tactical goals that are approachable, and give yourself target dates for achieving those, and you can honestly achieve any goal you want. Finally, you need to make sure that this is in writing and somewhere very visible to you. I always keep my goals right when I open up my closet. I have my goals and what actions I'm doing to achieve them. It can be on your computer, it can be wherever you see these goals, but it needs to be part of your daily calendar, daily plan, so that it's in writing and concrete so you don't slip on your dates for achieving each subsequent step. And you will have all your dreams come true. I'm Megan Bell Epstein. If you want to find more about how I built my business, please watch this next video.